From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government. Then in 1929, it all came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they had stayed with the tariff policy. It would have been a much different story. They tried to bring back tariffs to save our country, but it was gone. It was gone. It was too late. Nothing could have been done. It took years and years to get out of that depression, far longer than even FDR had that office right over there for a long period of time. The ramp system, that's rather intricate, was built because of him, and every time you walk up, you think of him, and he did a great job in many ways, but it lasted long beyond his terms, as you know. But it's not too late any longer, and we're going to start being smart, and we're going to start being very wealthy again. We're going to be wealthy as a country because they've taken so much of our wealth away from us. We're not going to let that happen. We truly can be very wealthy. We can be so much wealthier than any country. It's not even believable, but
it's believable to me. I think we absolutely will be wealthier than any other nation. Good morning, Patriots. I'm Tabitha with I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap, if I can get that out right. Already tripping over my words this morning. Good morning, Karen. And yes, Sheila, happy belated birthday to Margie. And just so you guys know, I knew it was Margie's birthday the other day, but I can't see who's watching the show. I know some of you can. Like if you're logged in, I think, to Facebook, you can see who else is on there if you're friends with that person. But there's nothing within my podcasting system that tells me who watches the show. So I have absolutely no idea who's watching the show. There's nothing that tells me later on. I can't go back and look to see who did watch. I can't see who's currently watching unless somebody pops in and gives a comment. I literally have no idea. Because every once in a while I'll see it's somebody's birthday and I'm like, man, I don't know if this person's listening or not, or if they ever listen, because I just don't know. But thank you for all who do. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Robert. And yes, Robert, believable to all of us. Good morning, Joe. And I will tell you, I love that speech. I did not get to watch it live. I had hoped I would. However, I was running around for storm preparation. There's a lot of storm preparation around here to do. I was working from home yesterday, and I thankfully, had a little bit of I was calling somebody, they didn't answer. That gave me a couple minutes to run around and do what I needed to do. I had to bring in a couple fruit trees that hadn't been planted. Yesterday already, before the main part of the storm came through, the wind was so strong, it moved my chickens run by like 5 feet. And I had to go out and move it back, put the chickens up before the storm came through. I didn't want them out in the run. I wanted them in the coop just in case. Our coop has a little area where they can get some fresh air, so they're not, just locked away in there during the day. But I thought it was in their best interest, because you just never know. And I'm glad I did. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Margie. Good morning, Todd. Any tornado damage? I didn't have any tornado damage. Some of you may have, thank God. But there was a tornado. I've only lived here for a little over a year. And I'm finding out that we're right in the middle of a tornado area because on that storm of March 14th, the tornado passed by just a little bit to the west, maybe by 200-300 yards, something like that, passed right through, took out, some trees. Luckily, no property damage. Now, yesterday there was a tornado, and it's kind of funny. Thank you, Channel 4, for forgetting about us over here. I'm in this weird area where I get some St. Louis news, but I get more Chicago news. So Chicago news wasn't covering this area at all. I happened to find Channel 4 News and was looking at their storm coverage, and they covered it all the way through, some of the Metro East. But when it started coming out a little bit further, they did say, oh, there's just straight line winds like heading into Greenville. And I'm just a couple towns past to the east of Greenville. And then all of a sudden the tornado sirens go off. I had just come back in and, got back to my work at home, and the tornado sirens went off again. And at that time, I was like, what in the world is going on now? They said the storm wasn't a danger anymore. Sure enough, yes, there's a tornado on the ground in Greenville. Hopefully, no more very serious injuries. Good morning, Sherry. Because I'll tell you, there was a house that was destroyed. Local reports, I haven't heard it on the news. Local reports said that there was a woman in the home watching the news, watching the weather coverage. And like I said, they said there's nothing to worry about, just straight line winds. They said, oh, we see a little bit of what do they call that action when it's moving, circular action, something like that. But don't worry about it. It's just straight line winds. No, it was a tornado. And then, of course, this poor woman watching television, not worried about anything. It destroys her home. A local story is that it threw her in her swimming pool, and she's in very serious condition right now. I don't blame that on the news, of course, but I do wish that if you can view their coverage, I wish they would cover it a little bit more for us folks out here in the rural areas. But gosh, rotating. Thank you for that, Todd. I knew there was like a word. I do not have a basement. As a matter of fact, there's water probably about 6 feet under where I'm standing right now. Well, maybe 6 feet under. We have a little bit of a crawl space, maybe 6 feet under that. There's a very high water table here. There's like 6 or 7, 8 natural springs right here on the property. And there's crawdad holes, like I've said before, all over the yard. So there's water just below. My son put a boroscope down there, down one of the crawdad holes. And there's like water. And out by my garden, when I'm gardening, I'm standing literally over 4 feet of dirt. And underneath that 4 feet of dirt is nothing but water. It's kind of scary, quite honestly. So no basement here, but I didn't feel like my life was in danger by any means, but it was a tornado. I'm going to guess probably an EF1, maybe EF2. I posted some photos of it, but either way, hopefully you guys are all okay and didn't have any storm damage. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Thomas. Good morning, Beatrice and Vernon. Hope you guys are all having a great morning. I'm having a great morning, and by the way, Colonel Joe Adams hopefully going to be joining us in, but he may not be. I sent him a link. Yesterday he was on the show and talked about joining us today. However, as you guys know, Washington, Missouri had a lot of storm damage. And, I thought about that this morning. I'm like, well, I didn't message him or talk to him, but I know, and I don't know what his situation is like communication wise. I don't think that this tornado was too close to his home. However, we know with the Washington Guard what their job is, and one of their jobs is protecting their own community, helping in their community. Soon as I saw that a tornado, had touched down out in Washington, I'm like, okay, of course, the Washington Guard is definitely activated. They're all out. Excuse me. And so I'm like, I am sure that Colonel Joe Adams is probably going to not be available today to come on the show. But I sent him a link anyway. If he gets the link, if he pops in, we'll be happy to have him, and would be glad to talk to him. But I saw some of that damage out in Potosi, and very serious, very, very serious. I haven't heard yet. I don't think there were any injuries in Potosi. And I know that I read that there were 2 tornadoes that touched down in this area. I don't know if that was both in Missouri, I'm guessing. I don't think they count us over here in central Illinois. And Robert says, interesting enough, my property is similar. That's interesting. It is always wet. You're right about that, Robert. Every time I go outside, if it rains, there is nothing but puddles. It's like a lake out there. And let's see, Glesna. Good morning, Glesna, from the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. You probably got some cold, icy weather out there. And Todd says, yes, there was a tornado down by Potosi. I heard that there were 2 in my area, one out by Patoka, if anyone's ever heard of Patoka. Patoka is behind my house. And then the tornado went through a town called Shafter, which is in front of the house. So I'm like, great, we're surrounded by tornadoes. Now, I didn't see it. It would have been close enough for me to see, but I did not see it. I went outside and lightning was coming down. I'm like, you know what? I am not risking my life. I've got enough stuff risking my life right now. I don't need to get hit by lightning. But I did want to let you guys know yesterday, during the show. Oh, wait, Shelley says Cape Girardeau had tornadoes and Delta, Missouri was hit hard. I did not know that, Shelley. And but now that you mention it, I know that somebody told me that Nevada, I think they pronounce it Nevada, Missouri was hit really hard with tornadoes also. So I think when they start doing some assessments of this damage, they're going to find that there's a lot more damage than they were really expecting there to be. Because I know I heard the news this morning said, oh, 2 tornadoes in this area. I'm thinking, I think there's a lot more than 2, because I heard at least about 5. So we'll see when they update that damage. Of course, they can't call it a tornado till they go out and take a look and make sure that it was an actual tornado and not straight line winds. And that's why I was kind of frustrated with Channel 4 News, because they're like, well, because they were talking about Greenville, Illinois. They're like, well, it's straight line winds. There's nobody there on the ground to take photos or video, so we're just going to call it straight line winds. I'm like, okay, well, you have all that fancy meteorology equipment there. You can't see that it's a tornado because guess what? It's on the ground. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we see some debris, a debris signature. I'm like, yeah, because it just ripped through this poor lady's house, who was probably listening to your broadcast. It said, oh, it's just straight line winds. Nothing to worry about. 2 seconds later, nope, tornado. But you can't blame the news. They do the best that they can. I think we can all pretty much guess. I think I have gotten to the point where I can watch the weather radar, as you probably can, and probably know as much as they do. Not disqualifying the meteorologists. They have much more training. Obviously, they do a great job. But however, I think most of us can kind of look now at the radar and be like, oh yeah, that looks like rotation. All right. Well, anyway, so yesterday I told you guys that I had my results back from my thyroid ultrasound. Well, it was good news. So thankfully, I didn't know, but it goes to show when you get one of those PET scans, you can have hot spots. And that does not necessarily mean it's the C word, which I already knew that. It can mean inflammation, it can mean granulomas, it can mean uh, autoimmune, type issues. I don't know yet what's wrong with my thyroid, and I probably won't have to worry about it to find out. They did find that, and I guess what caused the hot spot on the PET scan is I do have 3 what they called complex nodules on the right side of my thyroid, but they're tiny, like 4 millimeters, 6 millimeters, very tiny. So they're like, well, there's nothing you have to do about that now. We'll just wait it out and then go back and get another ultrasound somewhere down the road. So I consider that to be really good news. One less thing to worry about. Now I just have to get my lung biopsy, or not my lung, but that mediastinal biopsy done, and we'll see where that goes. But that gives me a lot of hope that maybe that also isn't as big of a deal. And so I just heard from Deanna, Mrs. Adams, and Colonel Adams will join us tomorrow instead of today, as I expected. He has got to be so busy with everything that's going on. I feel like we're so privileged to just hear from him at all this week with the storm situation that happened with the Washington Guard. And let's see here. Good morning, Karen. Todd said it is common. It is common, Todd. The only thing that kind of worried me is that, when you go and get a PET scan and something lights up, they call it, a hot spot or hypermetabolic activity, which the hypermetabolic activity for the thyroid when I had that test done wasn't that high. It was higher than what they call the SUV maximum, which means that it looks like a malignancy. And by malignancy, that doesn't mean the C word. Malignancy also can mean autoimmune. It can mean, again, granuloma, something like that. It can mean a lot of different things. So malignancy just means that there's something there. They just don't know what it is. Hopefully the other one will be the same. It had a much higher hypermetabolic activity. So we'll see. The reason why they were worried about the thyroid, they're trying to figure out where the mediastinal lymph node, the enlargement, where it came from. They think it came from somewhere, and traveled there, because that's not a normal place for it to start. So they're like, well, it's got to be somewhere that traveled here. So where did it start? But who knows? We will eventually sort it out, but I'm not going to worry about it. I actually probably slept so good last night, just thinking at least I don't have to worry about that, because that can be very disfiguring. And let's see, Karen, yes, it is good news. Good morning, Pam. And yes, very good news. Prayer definitely works. I do believe that. And Todd says, I had a nodule on my thyroid. They biopsied with a needle. Oh, but you're good. Well, I am very glad to hear that you're good. And Lori, I still need to get more sleep. Yes, I slept last night like I haven't slept in probably months. I was so tired, went to sleep. I usually read. I'm up reading the news half the night. Last night, nope, I slept. I actually slept till my alarm went off. I haven't done that in months. I'm usually wide awake at 3:30, 4 a.m. Anyway, lots to talk about. Enough about all of that. So much going on today. I'm sure you guys heard that Christine Grady, I'm sure you know that name, Dr. Fauci's wife, fired from the National Institute of Health, fired. She's out. I don't know what happened. I didn't hear everything, but she is done. And she shouldn't probably have ever had a job there to begin with. I'm not saying that she's not qualified to do something. I think she has great qualifications from what I recall. But either way, we don't need people like her or Fauci working in our health system. We absolutely do not. And now we know, of course, through Elon Musk, through the Department of Doge, how much money got funded, through the USAID, you said, into the NIH and other organizations like that, including Bill Gates, by the way. Bill Gates took an awful lot of money, his organizations did, from you said USAID, a lot of money, probably billions of dollars. I read high millions, and I bet it's even more than that. And so I think that his time is coming to an end. I really do. I think that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to do away with Bill Gates and all of his mad scientist experiments. I really do. I think he's going to say enough. We don't need these crazy DNA modified mosquitoes, flying around our country. Of course, it's probably too late because there's so many of them already out there. You just cannot mess with Mother Nature. And, I know they're there to protect us from Zika virus and all these other things, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't create Zika virus just so they could make some money to genetically modify these mosquitoes and then release them amongst the American population. And who knows what kind of experiments they're doing that we don't even know about. We know the NIH has been so tied to all of these bioweapon labs, these level 4, I call them bioweapon labs, but bio labs where they're, of course, they're doing some good research in these bio labs as well. But I will always believe, you cannot convince me any different, even if you tried, that COVID is a bioweapon. I think uh, they were absolutely working towards its use as a bioweapon. Whether that was going to be a bioweapon against other nations or adversaries or against the American people or the Chinese people, I don't know, and I don't really care what their purpose was in creating it. I will always believe that it was a bioweapon. It was intentionally created to harm people. And I don't know whether it was I think it was a accidental lab leak. And for those of you who remember, if you ever watched our show called The War on COVID back in the day, the information was already there. It was always there. The media chose not to report it. People chose not to talk about it, but the information was always already there long before COVID even came to the United States. The CIA, they watch biolabs. They knew that it started at that Wuhan biolab. They already knew long before, long before. But as a matter of fact, by the time they started reporting cases here in the United States, most people I knew already had COVID and were already past it, myself included. Myself included. Robert says, sent you a link to your Telegram page regarding thyroid nodules. Thank you for that, Robert. I will take a look at that. Todd says she was a pharmaceutical plant, talking about Christine Grady. Well, I think our government lies to us under, of course, the Democrat regime to a great degree, to a great degree. And COVID was one of those things they lied to us about. They said, oh, I remember when the first cases came to the United States. Oh, there's one case. Oh, 5 cases. And I followed it at the time, which is really why Vic Faust and Chris asked me to be on the War on COVID, because I was already following COVID long before, we even started that show, or before it was even here in the United States. And I remember looking at a CIA report at that time that said that there at that biolab in Wuhan, it was a level 4 biolab, which is the highest type of biolab. And they realized that, I think it was like sometime in early October, maybe October, well, mid-October, I should say. I think it was around the 9th, 12th, something like that, that they noticed that what they do is the CIA monitors cell phone signals in the biolabs. So they know how many cell phones are operating at any given time inside of a biolab. And they assume that each person that works there has at least one cell phone. So they monitor the activity of cell phones within the biolab. Not, I don't know that they have the data from the cell phones, but they can see that there's a cell phone signal within the biolab. And you can look this up. This is true. It is definitely a fact. And what happened is right there at mid-October, they started realizing that the cell phone signals within that biolab were reducing. And then I think it was either by the 12th or the 14th, I don't have the dates right now. They realized that there were 0 cell phones operating within that biolab at that time, because what probably happened is we had the leak, and then everybody in that lab was either sick, dead, or obviously banned from the facility because there was a leak. So we knew that way early on. And of course they lied about it. They didn't tell anybody that information. But that was the same as the CEO for Pfizer. The CEO for Pfizer told us back, gosh, when they first started commissioning this vaccine, he did an interview. I can't recall his name right now, but he did an interview and he stated very clearly that this vaccine is not going to prevent the spread of COVID. It's not going to prevent it. It may lessen symptoms. That's it. And people just, what they did? They just didn't play his interview. They didn't talk about it. It was not on the media. They probably said, nope, we don't want what this guy's saying, because we can't sell a vaccine that just merely might lessen the effects. And I think that was the second round of poison. The first round of poison was the COVID. The second round of poison was the vaccine. It's unbelievable. And I hope someday there are lawsuits. I hope people go to prison over what they did to us. And more than anything, not telling us the truth, just not telling us the truth, and then trying to give us some kind of vaccine that only made the situation far worse than it already was. I know, but there's a lot of people who had COVID who are not vaccinated. I was not vaccinated, who now are very sick. I have one friend in particular who has one of the turbo cancers, and she was never vaccinated, but she did have COVID. I absolutely think some of these turbo cancers were caused by the virus itself, not necessarily the vaccine. And the vaccine stepped in, and then people all of a sudden had these crazy, crazy blood clots. And thyroid issues, of course, went up for people who not only had COVID, but people who were vaccinated. Heart problems, not only for people who were vaccinated, but also people who had COVID. So there's a lot going on there. And I think someday we'll learn a lot more than what we already know. But that vaccine was never necessary, should have never been a thing, should have never happened. It's highly unfortunate that not only was there a vaccine, but then all these people went out and got it, and now they're suffering from some very serious, serious problems. And Sherry, Fauci should be tarred and feathered. You better believe that. You better believe it. And I missed one comment here. Let's see what. Sometimes my thing doesn't scroll up very well. Let's see, Dottie, you need to watch Mike Adams' microscope views of stuff collected in plastic garden cover. Ew. I like watching those shows when they have the microscopes out. They looked at a Dorito one day. I like Doritos, and I'm like, okay, I will never eat another Dorito. All the bacteria crawling on the Dorito, but that's probably the case with all of our food. But I don't know. And yes, Mary, be glad you did not get that. Todd says, yes, you reported on the cell phones. It went dark when they had the leak. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, I've talked about that many, many times, because I think every single person should know that that's the case, that they lied to us. They knew all along, but they lied to us. and not only that, but they lied to us because remember, the original name for COVID was the Wuhan virus. That was literally the original name. But if you say that now, you get banned on social media. I'll probably get all kinds of bans today from even talking about it. Robert, walnut consumption could paralyze and kill parasites. You're right, Robert. And I have, I think, 3 black walnut trees here on the property. And every single year I collect the black walnuts. Now, they're hard as a rock. It's very difficult, to open the black walnuts and do what you need to do. But you can make an astringent from the peels, which is supposed to be anti-parasitic. So I'm going to be looking into that. I have like boxes and boxes of black walnuts that I've collected over the past year or so. 2 seasons I've lived here through nut season, and lots of hickory nuts out on the property. So the other thing I want to talk about, Dr. Stella Emanuel, she is now the Deputy CDC Director. And I think she's going to do a fantastic job for us. The CDC, I've never had any respect for that organization. And of course, we're not affiliated with the WHO anymore, as it should be, thankfully. But the CDC, I see some turning around happening there. I think that maybe we're going to get a little more real truth. But real truth is going to be limited because I'm sure you guys heard that Elon Musk is stepping down from the Department of Doge. And this was eventually going to happen. Robert says cancer equals parasites. There is no question about it that, in my opinion, cancer, some people will say most cancers, I say all cancers are parasitic. Absolutely 100% so, in my opinion. And I think that means that we can probably treat ourselves to either A, never have cancer, or B, be able to rid ourselves of it without getting the chemotherapy and the radiation, which really is what causes your body a lot of damage. I've read countless reports where people say if you have cancer and you get chemotherapy and radiation, it's the chemotherapy that kills you, not the cancer itself. Same with biopsies. I talked about that yesterday. I saw a video where they said, well, a lot of people go in to get a biopsy of a nodule or some type of growth in their body, and they didn't have metastatic disease, and all of a sudden they get the biopsy, and then it goes wild and it goes crazy because of them making a puncture into whatever that growth is. And if it's parasites, that absolutely makes sense, because maybe they're holed up and walled into this one little cell area, and then all of a sudden you invade that and it allows them to escape. Makes perfect sense to me. But of course, we're not allowed to talk about that. We'll get in a lot of trouble. Mary, skin cancer also. Yeah, Mary, I've read countless of reports of people who have had lumps on their skin and have, melanomas and so on, who have used anti-parasitic type treatments on those different growths. And they said they're completely gone, not just on people, but on their pets as well. And Jay says, both Trump and Elon said this is fake news. It is definitely not fake news. Carolyn Levitt commented on it today, and she reiterated what was already said. And not only that, but Elon Musk said it himself. I brought it up on the show, I think last week, where Elon said that in May, now no one else has said May, Carolyn Levitt did not say May, but Elon Musk himself said in May, he's probably going to have to step down. He's got a lot of other things to work on. He's got SpaceX, he's got Neuralink, he has what limited capacity he's still doing for Tesla. And Carolyn Levitt made a statement earlier. I didn't save it, but she reiterated what many of us have already been hearing, that yes, Elon Musk is stepping down. And what she reiterated, and Trump had made a statement himself, allegedly. I didn't see Trump's statement that said Elon Musk will step down as a government special employee. Now, they didn't mention dates, but Musk himself said in May. And I yes, and he will stay on as an advisor, Dottie. You are absolutely correct. And so they'll still be able to call him up. He's not going to be at the White House anymore. He's not going to be at Donald Trump's side any longer. After probably May, they said he's going to start phasing out, here in April, officially be done in May. He feels like, the statement I read from him, and this was last week, where he said he feels like he did the job he came to do. And now it's time to get back to business. And I hate to say this because I don't want to get Democrats credit for anything, but I think that their attack and their attention on Tesla has really, really taken a toll on Elon Musk. And I hate that their methods could possibly be effective. And I don't know, I think that he does care. I really do. I think he cares because it hurts a lot of people. Tesla employs a lot of people, and a lot of people have bought stock, and he always cared about his stockholders. If you guys recall, Elon pre Donald Trump, pre White House, he talked a lot to his stockholders, and I think that he really did value them to a great degree, and most of them being Democrats. And Elon Musk, he has a board that controls Tesla. It's not all his decision. He's just a part owner these days. It's all part of the board of directors. And of course, it's a public stock. And there's a lot that happens when you own a company and it goes public, and a lot of people to answer to. And there's a good possibility they could remove him if they don't like him, or if they think he's causing the company some damage. So I think those are some of the things that are going on. And I don't want to think that Democrat actions could possibly be effective. But in this case, I really do think they are. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of you may or may not agree with me. But I think when all of these people went out and they were already attacking Musk, just for his support of Donald Trump. But then when they stepped it up, and we had these groups who we know are paying people to go out and protest, and we have these absolute lunatics on the far left who are going out and keying Teslas and setting Tesla dealerships on fire, setting Teslas on fire, vandalizing these dealerships. It does hurt people. It absolutely hurts people. And those people are terrorists. They absolutely do need to go to prison for a very long time. But it's starting to get to the point where it's affecting not only the people, the shareholders of Tesla stock, but it's affecting the board members of Tesla. It's affecting the employees of Tesla. So I think that Elon Musk, and this is just my assumption, he did absolutely not say this. This is just my assumption and how I feel, is that he probably took a good look at it. He thought, as great as he's doing here for the United States and for standing up for his country, and he'll continue to do that. He still has America PAC. He's still going to continue to fight for us. But I think he's done as much as he can do at these board meetings, talking to the various members of the cabinets and, explaining to them what they need to do going forward. That's, I think, part of his transition. And, this is nothing new. It's absolutely nothing expected, because what was it? 2 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, they had that cabinet meeting. Do you remember? Because everybody got so upset because Elon Musk was there. Well, at that time, and we talked about it here, and people just don't listen to us. I made a giant post about it on Facebook. Elon Musk is stepping down. Doge is over. If you guys might recall that show when I talked about it, because at that time, Elon Musk announced to the cabinet, Donald Trump made an announcement himself that it was just causing too much flack. Donald Trump felt that these liberal judges were stopping all his executive orders because they don't like Elon Musk. And he felt that if he changed the procedures and he put the cabinet secretaries back in charge of their own departments, Elon Musk would step away as an advisory role, then maybe that would help out a little bit. So that happened maybe, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month ago, where Elon Musk took on an advisory role. So now he's just distancing himself a little bit further. So this was already happening. It's not new news. The media just unfortunately doesn't repeat the truth. And Todd says, Brett Baer had a good interview with all of them. I would love to see that. Vernon, 2019, I had a growth on my left kidney. They didn't do a biopsy. They removed the kidney and the growth. Yeah, Vernon, a lot of times that's exactly what happens, especially people who have, I know, different growths on their lungs. Doctors can get a pretty good idea of what it is just by the imaging. And so if they know and they see the image and they have a really good idea that it is something that's malignant, they will just remove either an entire organ or a section. Let's say if it's your lung, they'll remove like a lobe of your lung. So I have heard about that happening, bypassing the biopsy, just going straight to remove it, which maybe that's a good idea. But at the same time, I've also heard people, particularly with lung cancer, or well, I shouldn't say lung cancer, who have had nodules or growth in their lungs. They get that resection, part of their lobe removal, then they go back and test it, and it was never cancer at all. But that's okay, better safe than sorry, I guess. And so that's kind of a double-edged sword, as everything these days. Sherry, I mean, he's making cars that drive themselves and save the astronauts. That, you know what? And you're right, not a peep from mainstream media. I can't begin to tell you what a blessing Elon Musk is to this country. And I don't even know if people fully realize it. Just look up, do your research on America PAC. When I was out there in Georgia, we were being paid and worked for America PAC, Elon Musk Super PAC. And I'll tell you what, was pretty darn fantastic, because he is very hands-on, very hands-on. As a matter of fact, I still have some flyers right over there to the side over here. And I'll tell you what, not only is Elon Musk very involved in America PAC, but he knows everything that's going on, He called into meetings, now I was not present, but he called into some meetings. He would have his right-hand man, attend these meetings in person. We had a special text line set up to where anytime we saw something that we thought Donald Trump or Elon Musk should see, we would take photos and send it into this text line. And he would personally view those text messages and those photos that we were sending in and even comment on them. So he is very hands-on. He might be the world's, wealthiest man, and he might be a very busy man with Neuralink and again, all these different companies. But I'll tell you what, he still has time for the people. And he's been a big part of that election in Wisconsin. And when we were working with America PAC in Georgia to get the early vote out for Donald Trump, it was told to us at that time that even though we won this election, thank God, it's not over. We still have a lot of work to do, and Elon Musk is going to be at the forefront of that work. And what he said at that time is that even though we won this election, we're going to go into these different communities and we're going to do our best to get these liberal judges out, to get the liberal mayors out, to change the makeup of politics from the ground up. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's doing exactly what he said he would do. I told you guys already, they were paying people to go out into Wisconsin to get the vote out for Brad Schimmel. Unfortunately, that failed. But why did it fail? It failed because they cheated. I mean, that's just it. They cheated in Wisconsin. Now, why is it that there are more votes coming out of Madison, Wisconsin than Milwaukee? That makes no sense at all. Republican voting stations ran out of ballots. I mean, come on. Doesn't that make sense to you? And so they know that Elon Musk, they know that Donald Trump, that they're going to now concentrate on these smaller areas. And the woman that won, I can't recall her name right now, in Wisconsin against Brad Schimmel, is a Supreme judge there for Supreme Court judge for the state of Wisconsin. She's pro-pedophile, believe it or not. Who would think that you could be pro-pedophile, but you can be pro-pedophile? And that's exactly what she is and why they were trying to keep her out. But they lost. We lost. And we're going to lose in other areas too if we don't get these voting stations under control. Because I know they cheated. General Flynn even made a statement that, yes, they absolutely did cheat. It's just crazy to even think about. And Sherry, yes, it was an incredible interview. And Robert says Hyundai already has made prototype flying cars. Speaking of electric cars, China's right on top of it. We're going to talk about those reciprocal tariffs here in just a minute. A lot higher for China than what I thought. I want to show you this really quick. This is a facility that China has made for their electric vehicles. I want you to take a good look at this. 130 square miles complex for electric vehicles. Take a look at this very quick video here. So I got that wrong. It's much larger than that. I said 130 miles. It's 130 square kilometers. Square kilometers. That's insane. For Chinese company BYD, this is their factory city they're building. So it's a complex. It's going to house 100,000 employees. So what you saw there, the dirt hasn't been built yet, is the housing for the employees. So of course we know how China likes to work their employees. And so they're going to have 100,000 employees and their families living there. It's going to be a city, like literally a city. It's going to have, this is so crazy. It's going to house not only the employees and their families, it's going to have, of course, residential buildings, schools, kindergartens, shopping centers, and stadiums. And this facility is going to produce over 1 million electric vehicles every single year. Now, how wild is that? How wild is that? I wonder if they got that idea from Elon Musk out in Texas, where he has that town where SpaceX is, and literally the people who work at SpaceX and their families live on that complex, and they have shopping and residential areas. It's kind of interesting, I thought. But I thought that was pretty interesting. 130 square miles to put out. I mean, that's a lot of vehicles, isn't it? BYD, they are from what I understand, the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles, and they're very inexpensive. I was looking them up, months ago, and not recently. You could buy one for like $10,000. They're tiny. A lot of these little Chinese cars are super tiny, but that is just insane. And Paul says the administration still needs to work on messaging. The optics of Americans losing their jobs is bad, even if they're not attending work and are expendable. Pound home the messaging with receipts, the why and the how. Yes, no question about it. And I played the video at the very beginning of the show. Oh, Sherry says, I went to SpaceX. It's incredible. I would like to go, Sherry. I might have to do that sometime. And it would be pretty neat to work for SpaceX, wouldn't it, to live there within the SpaceX community, who's going to obviously be welcoming Elon back when he leaves the White House. Loss for us, win for them. But most of you guys probably, or some of you saw the video I played at the beginning of the show about Trump talking about these reciprocal tariffs. And I'm going to play part of it again, not the whole thing. It's only a couple minutes long, but I'm just going to play the very beginning, because this is how we eliminate income tax. Now, some of you are probably watching the stock market this morning. The S&P 500 dropped 3% literally in the first 4 minutes, which was insane. I haven't seen it since then. But this is how we eliminate income tax. That's the purpose. Donald Trump said yesterday he has had this plan in his mind for 40 years. Yesterday, I played that video from 2012. He's been planning this for 40 years. This is not a new concept. So take a look at the first couple seconds of this video.
1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government.
Well, that's going to change. That's going to change. We're doing the Great Reset, aren't we? And yes, I did see that David Lester passed away from cancer yesterday. Extremely sad. Just a huge voice, of course, in conservative messaging and getting the word out. No question about it. Converted a lot of folks over by providing some facts versus rumors. Tara, buy the dip. If you want to buy some Tesla stock, now is the time. Pharmaceutical stock, now is the time. A lot of people are buying the dip. Same for crypto. A lot of people buying the dip. Now, of course, we have Bitcoin back up again, been in the news quite a bit. And so here's just some of them. I'm not going to read all of these reciprocal tariffs off. Most of you already know what they are. And again, a lot of this is bargaining chips, but a lot of it is also not all of these countries are going to say, okay, we're not going to tariff you anymore. Some of them are going to keep the tariffs. But we know that Donald Trump absolutely wants to eliminate income tax. We talked about yesterday how Ron DeSantis in Florida is trying. He is putting through some measures to eliminate personal property tax. Florida already doesn't have income tax. If you want to live a little bit better, maybe Florida is the way to go. If you can get rid of some of the crazies out there, maybe Florida is the place to go. Of course, I used to joke way back when, but probably before most of you, Joe Lynette, if you're here, I think you might have listened to that show back in the day, but way back in the day, I was on a show at 1380 a.m. and we used to joke. We had one whole segment about crazy Florida news, and it was like the craziest stories you can come across come out of Florida. It was kind of funny, but I absolutely love Florida. And I'll tell you what, no personal property tax, no income tax. That is the way to go. I didn't really expect the reciprocal tariff on China. I knew Donald Trump said it might be more than 25%. I wasn't really sure what to expect, 34%. But now China, their tax to us is 67%. their tariffs are 67%. We hit them with 34%. I think we should have hit them with 67%, but we can't do that because everything we own, probably every single thing in this room and every piece of equipment I'm using right now, probably made by China. And Joe says, yes, that was way back in the day, wasn't it, Joe Lynette? And then the European Union, who I think also deserved a much higher tariff, they're tariffing us 39%. We're giving them 20% back. Vietnam, Vietnam's tariffs against us are 90%. We're hitting them with 46%. Taiwan, I think we've all bought something and you turn it over and it says made in Taiwan. Taiwan, their tariffs against us 64%. Our hit back 32%. Japan, a lot of our products made in Japan. 46% is their tariff to us. We're hitting them with 24%. India, another country, we're tariffing them with 26%. Thailand, I'm just skipping through these. Another country that a lot of our products are made from, 36%. I could go on down the list. Some of the larger ones, let's see here if there's any real big ones. Sri Lanka, 44% we're hitting them with. But you know what? If we can eliminate income tax with these tariffs, then we do it. It's going to hurt for a short time, like we said yesterday. It's going to hurt for a short time. And I think it was Jay. Jay said the stock market is extremely reactionary. Not surprised. It is extremely reactionary. It'll go up, it'll go down. I always say just hold whatever you have. I don't even look at my stocks anymore. They're so far down right now. I don't even look. And I don't even care. Eventually it'll do what it does, and I'm just going to leave it alone. Robert said the world will trade through Mexico and Canada. We will find a way. We will absolutely find a way. Jay said, yeah, these countries upset Trump. We're leveling the playing field. And then Robert said, try buying a Harley in Japan. Start at 65,000 US dollars. Yeah, exactly. It's time that we start hitting back. It's not right that all of these countries place these tariffs and VAT taxes and so on against the United States. And we rely so heavily on the products of these other countries. They're making out pretty darn good because we don't make a darn thing here in this country other than Teslas and Jeeps. So we've got to get busy here in our country making American products. And you know what? There are plenty of ways you can buy American products. You really can. Maybe not for everything, but if you really take a good look, you might pay more, you will pay more, but you can buy American made. And if you really want to save some money, buy American made, because we're going to, hopefully these tariffs, not only are they going to be bargaining tools that might reduce the tariffs placed against us or eliminate them entirely, like what happened with Israel, but more so, let's hope that Trump wins the battle in eliminating income tax for Americans. We have got to. People are struggling. I don't have to tell you that. People are struggling. Maybe you yourself are struggling. And then you find out that our government has been stealing your money. All these years you've worked hard to provide for your family, and you couldn't because you're paying taxes on literally everything from your home all the way down to the gas you put in your car, the food you buy at the grocery store. And then you find out you're paying these taxes because you think your taxes are going to something you need, but they're not. Then you find out what's really happening to these taxes is that we're supporting a lot of other countries who don't need our support. And most of that money that we think is supporting these countries that don't need our support is actually going into the pockets of probably just about every single member of Congress. Because I'll tell you what, I don't have to tell you this, I'm sure you know, I don't hear any single member of Congress standing up right now. Do you? None of them. They're all silent. They all know they've taken the money. I don't even hear the good ones standing up. I don't hear anything from anyone. Pretty darn quiet, isn't it? Even amongst Republicans in Congress, they're all scared. They all know they've taken the money and that we're probably going to find out who it was that took it and how much they took. And then it's going to change everything. It's going to change everything because I don't care how good you might think somebody in Congress is. I'll bet you they've taken the money. Your money is just a big funnel, isn't it? You pay all these taxes in and it funnels down into these different organizations like USAID, I call USAID, and then it funnels out and then it trickles down to all of their accounts, their bank accounts, not yours. Hopefully we're going to see some arrests. That's what I expect. I would really like to see every single member of Congress arrested if they took money, all of them, every single one of them. I don't care if I like them or not. They took some money. I love Marjorie Taylor Greene, absolutely love her. But if I found out she took some money from our tax dollars, she belongs in prison. They all do. I know that might be unfair, but that is exactly how I feel. Paul says the sun will rise, the birds will chirp, the market will go up. Yes, it will. Mary, and we help so many countries. We do. And it's unfortunate that what we have found out now is we think, let's say, $2 million are going to Malaysia to help some kids, buy school books or something. I don't know, to get some clean drinking water. Then you find out, no, maybe $1,000 went to the kids in Malaysia, but the rest of the money actually went to pay someone. And this is a true story. This is a true story, except for that it was really, what was the country? Was it the Congo? Bali? No, Haiti? I think maybe it was Haiti, where we said we were giving X number of dollars to Haiti. And then we find out, well, out of that 80 something million dollars that went to Haiti, maybe they got 5% of it. The rest of it was given to Chelsea Clinton. $85 million going to Chelsea Clinton. That's where your money's going. So when you work today, I want you to remember that that dollar that comes out of every hour that you work that goes to tax is actually paying for Chelsea Clinton to have a big, beautiful, multi-million dollar home and for her to travel all over the country and not work like the rest of us. That's a good way to think about it. Good morning, Bobby. I just spoke to a good friend of mine who owns a tool and die company in Illinois. He is super excited. He has a family-owned business, and his father founded it in 1978. He has a lot of business knowledge as well as know-how in making things. He said that since NAFTA, man, NAFTA was terrible, which was in the 1990s, America's lost roughly $20 million manufacturing, 20 million manufacturing jobs. But there's the kicker. For every one manufacturing job that we have here in the US, it fosters 4 more American jobs right here in the good old US. We might need to keep some of those immigrants here. Maybe so, Bobby. Yeah, you should have him have him come on as a guest to the show. I would love to talk to him about how NAFTA affected his business and what he thinks about Donald Trump and these reciprocal tariffs, and especially because Donald Trump, of course, is targeting the uranium and steel and pharmaceuticals and a lot of these industries where we've really seen a big hit. So, Bobby, if you can get your friend on, I'd be happy to have him come on as a guest. But yeah, we're just going to have to hold out in with these reciprocal tariffs, and I think we're going to see this is a 40-year process, in the making. Donald Trump has been planning this, as he said, for 40 years. 40 years. So he knows exactly what he's doing. No question about it. And, I don't know if you guys saw this or not. There's a few more things I want to talk about. Anna Paulina Luna. Have you seen her recent statement about the JFK files? Anna Paulina Luna, oh gosh, it's already 8:56. I'm going to run over a few minutes. Anna Paulina Luna said that there is no way that Ōswald was the shooter of Robert Kennedy. She said, John Kennedy, JFK. She said it's not possible for him to be the shooter. And why? Because she said he was down by the limousine. He was nowhere near where the shooting took place. Now, Anna Paulina Luna, of course, she's a representative out of Florida. And this is part of her revelation of what, after she looked through these files. Now, here's something interesting. She said that we've always known this. NBC has a video that has never been shown to the public. Now, why it's being held by NBC, I don't know. But she said this video by NBC, which is she is trying to have released to the public, shows Ōswald down by the limousine, nowhere near the area. There's no way, she said, he could possibly be the shooter based on where he's seen in this video. I don't think that would surprise any of us, but I think that if NBC has this video, I think they owe it to the people to be able to see that video. And I think they need to be ordered to show that video or release its contents in some way, because we have every right to know. We opened these files up so we could see all of the information. But as always, we still don't have an Epstein list. We still have no idea who those clients were. I'm not convinced we'll ever know, quite honestly. And with the JFK files, there really wasn't a whole lot of information there that was released that we didn't already know. But I'm not complaining. I know I've got to be patient in time. In time, that will happen. And Robert says, I know, Robert, you've said this before, that the driver was the shooter. And I know that I've seen the videos, and there's no question that when John Kennedy was in the car being driven, you absolutely do see the driver turn around, with his left hand with a gun, and it points directly at Kennedy in the back seat. And it does make absolutely perfect sense that it was him, and I don't know, all of the details, but other people who counter that statement say, well, no, he was reacting to the shot that he heard the shot fired, he turned around. But if you look at the video very closely, I mean, if he heard a shot fired, why is he turning in that direction and pointing his gun into the back seat? And it happens very quickly. Then he hurries up and puts it back. But I saw it in the video. If you see the video, you can definitely see it. It does really make you wonder, doesn't it? I haven't heard that uncovered, but it does make you wonder. So one last thing I want to talk about today, and I was really hoping that Colonel Joe Adams would be here to talk about this. I wasn't going to talk about it until I saw him coming on the show, but I'm going to play this video for you, and then we will talk about this a little bit more tomorrow with Colonel Joe Adams. We've talked often. Colonel Adams yesterday of the Washington Guard was, when he joined us for a couple minutes, was talking about the UK, Western Europe, and how it is becoming the caliphates for Islamic extremism. And that is absolutely true, absolutely true. And, and it's growing by the day. It is literally growing by the day. And I thought that was interesting because they would love to do that here in the United States too. And I've talked about in the past how Texas, of course, we already know about parts of Detroit and New York and some other areas. Columbia, Missouri, is one. But there's a lot of areas in our country that have these no-go zones to where if you are not Muslim, if you're not of Islamic faith, you are not allowed to enter these areas. And so I thought this was kind of interesting when I saw this video. Now, this is Josephine, Texas, and people in this area are freaking out. Josephine, Texas. There's a town they're building there. It's like a smart city, and it's called, there's Epic 1 and Epic 2, two different developments, 402-acre Muslim complex. Now, before I show you this video, and before I get too far into it, I want to make it also very clear, like I've done in the past, I am not against the Muslim religion. I'm really not. I think that the majority of Muslims are really good people who just want the same things as we do. But the problem is that there is maybe, one out of every 20, some people say 1 out of every 20, some people say 1 out of every 100, excuse me, that is extremist, that becomes a jihadist, and that is spreading like wildfire. And I know that's the case in Texas. I know it is, because I have read about the mosque that's attached to this development. And at one point, their imam was let go because he was upset about the radicalism that was spreading through this particular mosque. And so he was fired. They replaced him probably with somebody a lot more radical. And that's exactly how radicalism spreads through the mosque. A couple people get into positions of power and they spread that hatred right here in Texas. You got to take a look at this. This is absolutely crazy. 402-acre Muslim complex. The people around this is in Josephine, near Josephine, Texas. People are upset because they said they can hear, if you're a very ultra conservative Islamist, they have a prayer 5 times a day. And so 5 times a day, the people around this area are hearing through the loudspeakers the Muslim prayers, and they're very, very upset about it. You can take a look at this video here.
402 acres of beautiful scenery. Welcome to the future of living. Welcome to Epic City. Nestled in the heart of Josephine, Texas. It is about 20 miles and 20 minutes from Epic.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Welcome to Epic 2.0. Epic City is more than just a neighborhood. It's a way of life, a meticulously designed community that brings Islam to the forefront, a community that blends with nature, crafted to elevate your living experience. With single-family homes, multi-family townhomes and apartments, senior living, and in the heart a mosque and a school.
So they are building, just like really a lot like what China is doing with their electric vehicle facility that spreads over 130 kilometers. Well, here we have an Islamic mosque, and they're doing the exact same thing. 402 acres right there outside of Josephine, Texas, where they're building their own little city where they have their mosque, they're going to have residential areas, they're going to have their own schools, and I can guarantee you, it is going to be run under Sharia law, not American law, and I can promise you it's going to be a no-go zone. If you are not Muslim faith, you are not going to be entered. And I will guarantee you they are going to have their own police force that's going to install Sharia law. I will bet my life on it right now that they will absolutely not have American police. They will not allow Texas police to enter that area. And it's like, how can we allow this to happen? How can we allow this to happen? And Donald Trump, of course, it's only today's April 3rd, is that right? So Donald Trump has only been in office for a short time, and unfortunately, he did not address this in his prior term. I hope he addresses it in this term, that we have to get rid of these no-go zones. I'm not anti-Muslim. Like I just said, I do absolutely believe the majority of Muslims are absolutely, they want the same things we do. They're very peaceful people. But unfortunately, radicalism is growing within their communities. They know it's growing. A lot of them worry about it, quite honestly. They don't want their children to become radicalized. And some people will say, well, that's not true. They're all the same way. But I don't agree with that statement. I think that there are certainly some good people that have the Islamic faith. And I think they're scared of radicalism, because I'll tell you what, these radical jihadist groups, particularly Sunni groups, which represent 99% of the world's terror organizations, they kill more Muslims than they do anyone else. And that is a fact. But when are we going to talk about this subject of these no-go zones? Why is there any area in America where you can't enter because you're not Muslim, or I can't enter because I'm not Muslim, or they have their own police law and they still have Sharia courts? How is Sharia law able to survive in the United States? How, there's countries, and there's starting to be countries around the world who are starting to ban the burqa. And there's a good reason why. We've got to nip it in the bud while we can before it continues to grow. And I personally see this 402-acre complex as a really big problem here in the United States. And I don't know, the last thing we want to see is one of these popping up in every state. It doesn't take much. We can see what's happening over in the UK. It does not take much before it takes over the country. We cannot allow that to happen. Here in the United States, guess what? We live under American law. We abide by the United States Constitution, and we are a country based in Christianity, and it will always be that way, and we have to make sure it always stays that way. We welcome people of any faith, and people, I think, absolutely have the right to choose whatever faith they want to believe in, but we are still a country based in Christianity, and the minute that changes, it's all over. Okay, we're close. We're probably teetering on the edge of that right now, but as soon as that happens and the scale tips, we're done. So we just cannot allow that to happen. We've got to keep an eye, and I hope that Donald Trump wakes up and realizes that these no-go zones have to be dealt with. Sharia law has no place in our country. It should be banned. Sharia law in our country is not banned. It's not. And I hope that somebody addresses that to Donald Trump while he has the chance to make some changes here. And yes, Mary, combat it with Jesus praise music. Down, in, out. You got that right. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me today. I only ran a couple minutes over. We'll be back tomorrow with Col Joe Adams. I'm going to talk about a couple of things tomorrow. Besides, of course, can't wait to talk to Col Joe Adams and see how storm recovery is going. I can't believe it. They got hit so hard out there in Washington, Missouri, and Washington County, Missouri, I should say, Washington County, Missouri. And I do hope he's doing great. I hope everything is okay. And I know Washington County, did suffer out there in Potosi, a pretty serious situation with those tornadoes yesterday. Tomorrow, though, I want to talk about, I don't know if you guys have heard of soursop or not. Soursop. I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting. I'm going to talk about soursop. We're going to talk a little bit more about the papaya seeds. And we're also going to talk about sleep and how good sleep is and is not for your body. So lots of things to talk about tomorrow. I've been reading more and more into these groups and the people and the what has worked for them. And I definitely think it's worth not only one discussion, but many discussions over a period of time, because there's so much to learn. Sourdough bread. I would love to talk about sourdough bread. I have never made sourdough bread. I've never made a sourdough starter, but I might do that. I can't do it till I get the right, jar in place, but I'm gonna work on that this weekend. And you guys should too. Let's all start some sourdough starter together. We can kind of compare our sourdough starter and our bread recipes and so on. So plan on that if you can. That's some homework for you. Get your supplies out, start making some sourdough starter if you haven't already this coming weekend. That's what I'm going to do. We can kind of do it together. But I do hope you guys have a really great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Lots going on. I can't believe it's going to be already Friday. How fast the week goes. Well, have a good day, everyone. I'm Tabitha with Tabs